It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of May 12th, 1995. 6 movies to look at today, so let's just jump on into it. And we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman in the submarine thriller Crimson Tide. I mean, honestly, you can't go wrong with putting Denzel Washington into anything, honestly, because, as I've said before, I think he's one of the greatest actors, if not the greatest actor we've ever had. I can't really think of a terrible Denzel Washington movie. There have been some ones that have not been good, but there certainly have been a lot less bad movies than you would think there would be. And he's pretty good, damn good in this movie, and he gets to work off with Gene Hackman in a movie that's really based off of a story, based off a real incident during the Cuban Missile Crisis, with the script that had some unpolished rewrites from Quentin Tarantino, directed by Tony Scott, of course. Don Simpson, Jerry Bruckheimer just come off of Bad Boys, and it's just a damn good movie. It's a great submarine thriller. I mean, there's been a lot of great submarine thriller movies that I've talked about in the past. Hunt for Red October, of course, comes to mind. I've mentioned Das Boot a couple of times, and U-571 is one that I think of too. Just a lot of great movies in this genre, and this is another great one here. You have a cast that has Washington and Hackman, but you also have George DeZunja, Viggo Mortensen, James Gandolfini is in here as well. It's just a brilliant movie, man. It's just a stylistic movie. Tension-filled as all hell, great action, great thrills all around, great writing all around. Just a phenomenal movie. I can't recommend this movie enough. Crimson Tide, a great movie. Can't recommend it enough. So, with that said, let us move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is Hugh Grant in the comedy The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill But Came Down a Mountain. So this is such a bizarre concept for a romantic comedy. You've got this story about this town that is just 16 feet off of having a hill that could be considered a mountain. So they basically kind of force Hugh Grant to stay put until they can get to 16 feet. I mean, it's just such a weird plot to have within a movie like this, but it kind of takes a backseat to the main story about this relationship between Hugh Grant and Tara Fitzgerald, and then Colm Meaney being in this kind of the triangle that they're in, and It's okay for what it is. It's nothing really all that spectacular or all that amazing, but Hugh Grant working with the quirkiness that he brings to these type of movies and these type of performances that he has, and he kind of makes it work here. But other than that, though, there's nothing really all that spectacular about this movie or anything too amazing about it. It's just a passable film. It's got some decent moments here and there, some good comedy, some good lightheartedness to it. Perfectly salvageable for what it is, but nothing too spectacular or crazy. So that's The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill But Came Down a Mountain. So let's move on to the next movie, and it is one of the talking pig movies from 1995, and probably the stupidest one of the two, and that is Gordy. So some might say this actually has kind of an advantage to Babe, since Babe didn't come out until August, and this one came out first, but even if Babe didn't come out in 1995, this would still be seen as kind of a really bad movie. I mean, it's really not a good movie on any means, but it's one of those movies where you look at it, you think it's harmless enough, but then when you really look into this movie and some of the levels that this movie takes, it's just too much. I mean, in the beginning of the movie, this pig's family, his father gets sold off, and he's telling them as he's leaving, take care of the family. He's leaving the farm to try to catch up to his father, but then as soon as he gets back to the farm, the rooster's just like, oh, by the way, the rest of your family were sold off. Yeah, sorry you missed that part. It's just and if you think that's crazy enough, it gets crazier and crazier as it goes along. Like, everybody can understand Gordy because, as Gordy says in the trailer, people can understand talking animals as long as they just take the time to listen to it. So it's just like if you have pets at home, just take the time to listen to them, because you know what? You can apparently talk to them, at least by this movie's logic. And it doesn't help that this movie also has a pretty lame villain. It's one of the mothers in this movie whose fiance is the bad guy. And it's just like really? Like, this is where we're heading into this? It's just kind of like I don't know what they were thinking when they were making this movie. It's just so many things happening here that are just so confusing and make no sense whatsoever. Like, like it's just such a bizarre movie, and um, I mean, if there's any positives I could say about it, it has a song in there that's actually kind of not bad. Big Power in the House, which is just like it's not a good song at all. But I'm sorry, man. Like once you hear that song, it won't leave your head for a good week or so. It's just like it's one of those songs that's so ridiculous and so stupid, but you just can't help it. As soon as you start listening to it, it'll be like stuck in your head for at least a week. So other than that, though, this is a pretty dumb movie. It's a stupid film that's not really all that clever, not really all that funny, and I mean, you might as well just wait a couple more months for the much better movie in Babe, but we'll get to that one eventually. But in the meantime, let's get away from Gordy and let's move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is The Perez Family. So where to even begin with what's wrong with this movie? For one thing, Marissa Tomei, Alfred Molina, Angelica Houston, Chaz Palminteri. None of these people are Cuban, so that's already strike one against this movie. Strike two. The whole movie exists because these two people who know nothing about each other apparently have the same last name, and that's more than enough to get them back get them into America. But it's just like that's strike two, I guess. But strike three, the movie just isn't any good. Like it's just not a good movie. And this is Mira Nair, who we talked about a couple of her movies before. In fact, actually one movie, Mississippi Masala, which is a great movie, a very underrated Denzel Washington film. But yeah, it just doesn't work here. There's just so much there that just does not work. And you got these great actors in here, and they don't even make a good realistic couple in this movie. I mean, Marissa Tomei and Alfred Molina. You could just tell by the way they talk to each other. There's not that much chemistry there, and like everybody else in here is just kind of phoning it in. There's just nothing about this movie that really stands out and says, yeah, this needed to be made the way this is actually presented. It's just like there's just nothing there. Like honestly, they're trying their best, but it just doesn't work as a movie. It's just not entertaining whatsoever. So yeah, that's a hard skip on this one. So let's move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is A Little Princess. So this is a movie based off of a novel by Frances Hodgson Burnett, who also did The Secret Garden, which Warner Brothers turned into a movie 2 years prior to this. It was actually a pretty good movie, and this is a really good film as well. But unlike The Secret Garden, this was not a big success at the box office, but it was a critical success, and actually Warner Brothers re-released this film later on in the year, hoping to get some buzz building toward it, because the critical response for it was pretty good. And this is a nicely made film. It definitely has a lot of the things that made The Secret Garden work as well as it did. It's a very nice film, very well written, has a great young cast involved in here. It's a really interesting take on the story, and it's very well done. Has some beautiful cinematography by Emmanuel Lubezki, and also has some great artwork, art direction as well. The movie is stylistically beautiful. Of course, it's directed by Alfonso Cuarón, who would later go on to direct the Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, along with Children of Men, some other great movies as well. I mean, it is a really good film. It's a really good underrated film that did not get the proper respect it deserved back then. It has gone on to have a massive following on home video, and it has a following elsewhere. I'm glad people have discovered it because it really is a little underrated gem that a lot of people did not talk about back then. But it's gotten the proper respect it has deserved. It definitely deserved beforehand, though. So I can't recommend this one enough. Definitely check out A Little Princess. With that said, let us move on to the last movie that we have here, and that is Gumby the movie. Yeah, this is another one of those ones where I used to watch this one a lot as a kid. Mostly because I watched the Gumby TV series when it was on Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon back in the day. But even as a fan of that, I look back at this movie and I realized that this movie really wasn't anything all that special, and it was mostly because they didn't do anything really special to make this a feature-length movie caliber film, like a movie caliber film. Like there's not really a interesting story that takes up a good hour and a half, like a good movie adaptation should. It's nothing too grand or something that's completely outside the norm for the movie. It's from the original TV series itself, but it's I don't know. Like, I'm very mixed on this one. I mean, on the one hand, I do kind of enjoy it, mostly because of my love of it as a kid, but but as somebody who has seen this movie multiple times, I look at it and I'm just kind of like, this is okay, but did this really need to be a movie that needs to be seen on a big screen? There's nothing really about it that screams big screen caliber adventure. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like there was anything there that warrants a big theatrical release like this movie got. Big theatrical releases cutting it kind of a bit because it was a box office flop when it came out. It didn't have a huge theatrical opening. It kind of had a very limited rollout, but it did have kind of a fan base when it got to home video and all that. And it has had somewhat of a following over the years. It's not a bad movie per se. The stop motion animation does work the claymation animation, I should say. It does work very well here. And there are a couple of funny moments that did kind of make me laugh, like dude pushing random buttons like he's having a seizure or something. That just makes me laugh all the time whenever I see that. But other than that, though, this movie is kind of forgettable, but at the same time, I do have kind of a little bit of a nostalgic feel for it because I did watch the show a lot when I was a kid, but yeah, like I said, it's nothing too special, but for Gumby fans, I think they get what they deserve. I think they probably deserve a little bit better than this, but take what you get, and you get something a little bit enjoyable out of it, so yeah, so that's Gumby the movie. So on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. We only got 2 movies to look at next time around. 2 notable films, including Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson in the third installment of the Die Hard series, Die Hard with a Vengeance. We also have Billy Crystal and Deborah Winger starring in the comedy Forget Paris. So we'll look at those 2 movies next time around. But until then, thank you very much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. And until then, as always, take care.